Today in wrestling news, the post-SummerSlam edition of WWE Raw did excellent television ratings. Booker T had some interesting thoughts about CM Punk's promo on The First Dance, and we've got the lineup for tonight's AEW Dynamite, all now on your spoiler-free wrestling news rundown. Just a reminder that we omit any news or information which could potentially spoil the future angles, storylines, or match results for you. If you appreciate this style of wrestling coverage, please consider sharing this video with a friend, subscribing, and clicking the notifications bell. The television ratings are in for the post-SummerSlam edition of WWE Raw, and it did very well in the television ratings. It did one of the best ratings that WWE Raw has done all year. They averaged 2.067 million viewers over the 3-hour show and pulled in a 0.64 rating in the key 18 to 49-year-old demographic. Now, up on your screen now, and this is courtesy of itnwwe.com, we have the past ratings for Raw this year, and you can see you have to go all the way back until April 12th for the last time that Raw did over 2 million viewers. They also did a 0.68 in the ratings for that show that took place during WrestleMania season. And you have to go all the way back then to January 4th during Royal Rumble season for when they did over 2 million viewers again. And again, they did a 0.68 in the ratings for that show. So this was the third best rating that Raw has pulled in all year, I believe. Very strong, coming off the heels of SummerSlam. Maybe fans were tuning in to see what was up with Brock Lesnar, what was up with Becky Lynch, although she's SmackDown. But either way, WWE Raw does very strong viewership this week. Former NXT UK Women's Champion Kaylee Ray made a surprise appearance at NXT TakeOver 36 on Sunday. After Raquel Gonzalez had dispatched of Dakota Kai, Kaylee Ray came out to confront the champion, and now it appears as though maybe Kaylee Ray has the NXT Women's title in her sights. Now, according to a report from PW Insider's Mike Johnson, this is not a short-term move for Kaylee Ray either. She has moved to the United States and is set to become a full-time member of the NXT roster. So no longer with the NXT UK roster, Kaylee Ray full-time with NXT in the United States. Billy Corgan's National Wrestling Alliance has a big weekend coming up. They have 2 pay-per-views which will both emanate from the Chase Ballroom in St. Louis. On Saturday night, they will present NWA Empower, and one of the matches on that show will feature Deonna Purrazzo defending the Impact Knockouts Championship against Melina. If you remember, at one point Billy Corgan had attempted to purchase Impact Wrestling, but Anthem Sports and Entertainment ended up with the company. This led to some bad feelings between Corgan and Impact Wrestling, which, according to comments made by Corgan recently, no longer exist. NWA and Impact Wrestling have entered into a talent-sharing agreement as of late, and Corgan says that Mickie James and the former Simon Diamond, Pat Kenny, are the ones responsible for mending fences between the two promotions. Here is what Corgan had to say on the podcast. I think it's all credit to Mickie. You know, she was the one that had the relationships to go back and kind of reopen that door, which from my end was closed due to some business stuff that had gone on. Then, Pat Kenny, who works behind the scenes in talent relations, has a long-standing relationship with people in Impact. I think it just kind of mended the fence, and we found some business to do together, and they've been a great partner in this. So expect more talent sharing and more working together between Impact Wrestling and the National Wrestling Alliance. Paul White will make his return to the wrestling ring at All Out on September 5th. He will face QT Marshall on the show. White recently took part in an interview with Chris Van Vliet, and a couple of the things he said have made headlines. One of the things he said that created a bit of a buzz was when he told the story about how he got the name The Big Show in WWE. This is what White had to say about Vince McMahon giving him the name. "That was Vince," White said. "When I first came into WWE, I was Paul White. I just don't think Vince liked the spelling of my name or just my name. But what could Vince know about marketing? But he walked by me one day and he goes, 'So how's the Big Show today?' I go, 'I'm good, but who the hell is the Big Show?' He goes, 'You! You can walk, you can talk, you're an athlete, you're the Big Show!' He walked off. And I thought, oh dear God, I hope that is not my wrestling name. But it was. It was his wrestling name for a very long time. Also in that interview with Chris Van Vliet, White spoke about the possibility of a match with Shaquille O'Neal finally taking place, but in AEW. If you remember, at WrestleMania 32, Shaq and Big Show got involved in a stare-down during the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. Most people assumed that would lead to a match between the two, but it never did. White spoke about the possibility of a Shaq versus Paul White match happening in AEW during his discussion with Chris Van Vliet. He said, "I think that will happen now because there's not as much red tape. He's already competed with Cody Rhodes. It was him and Jade Cargill versus Cody Rhodes and Red Velvet. That was an incredible showing for Shaq, so hopefully we'll be able to cut some more red tape and make it happen. He's been hitting the gym lately," White said of Shaq. "Shaq is pretty big right now. He's huge Shaq. That's the best way of looking at it. I think he is nervous about me, so he's putting on a bit of size. Where I am Tall Paul, the car salesman." Booker T has been making headlines for the last little bit for some interesting comments he made about CM Punk's return at the First Dance in Chicago's United Center. Booker feels that Punk talking about his time in WWE really took away from the promo. Here is what Booker had to say. "CM Punk came back and took his moment and chose to talk about WWE. That right there was just a total miss as far as I'm concerned. He struck out. I can only imagine if The Rock had that same 21,000 in Miami, Florida. The Rock would have talked about every landmark in Miami and that everybody in Miami frequented. He would have had those fans going crazy with excitement. But CM Punk chose to talk about the WWE, and that 9 minutes went back so slow when it could have been a party going on in the United Center." I don't know, Booker. Sort of feels like maybe it was a party going on in the United Center, and I don't know too many other people who feel that that promo went by slow. Booker continued, "I felt like a guy talking about WWE, and when you're talking about the other side, only thing you're doing is giving those guys airtime. Of course I know the AEW crowd will eat that up, but for me as a professional, that's the last thing that I'm going to be thinking about is the other side. I'm going to be thinking about the here and now." Like I said, I could be wrong, but I just think he missed a moment there in front of his hometown with over 20,000 people. It was like 15,000 people, but that's what Booker said. "For me, it was the same promo that was given in WWE. It was about WWE. It had nothing meaningful to it as far as what I'm going to create, who I'm going to blow up, how I'm going to take AEW. By coming in, being a nice guy, and throwing out freaking ice cream bars, who gives a damn about that?" Some pretty interesting comments from Booker T regarding CM Punk's promo at the First Dance. New Japan Pro Wrestling's Kenta wrote on Instagram stories that he had been sick with COVID-19 for a couple of weeks, but has since received a negative test. He has not wrestled for New Japan Pro Wrestling since the Wrestle Grand Slam event in the Tokyo Dome on July 25th. Kenta wrote, "I got COVID last few weeks. First of all, I apologize to everyone who had to change plans because of me. Fortunately, my symptoms was not too bad. Just had a fever a few days and lost my smell, but now I'm totally fine and got a negative test. Stay safe and healthy, everyone." And finally, All Elite Wrestling presents the 100th episode of Dynamite tonight. The show will emanate from Milwaukee, and CM Punk is scheduled to make his first appearance on Dynamite on the show. Also scheduled for the event, we'll see Red Velvet take on Dr. Britt Baker's new muscle Jamie Hayter. We'll see Malachi Black go one-on-one with Brock Anderson as young Brock Anderson looks to avenge his father after Black attacked him when making his AEW debut. Also scheduled for tonight, Orange Cassidy will take on Matt Hardy. Now on AEW Dark last night, 2 matches and 1 segment were announced. One match will see Jon Moxley, Eddie Kingston, and Darby Allin team together to take on the Wingmen, JD Drake, Cesar Bononi, and Ryan Nemeth. Also in trios action, the Gun Club, Billy Gunn and his sons Colton and Austin, will take on the Factory's Aaron Solo, Nick Camarado, and QT Marshall. Paul White will be on commentary for that match, as White and Marshall will go one-on-one at All Out on September 5th. Also scheduled for tonight, Chris Jericho will address his future after his loss to MJF in the 5th Labor of Jericho match last week. And with that, you are completely up to date with everything going on in the world of professional wrestling, minus anything which could potentially spoil future shows for you. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and click the notifications bell so you don't miss out on any more news or reports from Spoiler Free Wrestling.